of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC 010 titled Managerial Economics for MBA Program. Presenting Block 4 titled Pricing Decisions. Unit 13 Pricing Strategies.
Objectives. After going through this unit, you should be able to understand different pricing strategies adopted by firms, identify the relevance of these pricing strategies under different conditions, apply pricing decisions to world situations. Introduction. Not every customer is willing to pay the same price for the same product. So, how is a seller to set prices to maximize business? The answer is the world of price discrimination. A good example of price discrimination is different prices charged for movie, concert tickets from students and adults. UCab company is an American company which offers cab services across the world, even in India. Price discrimination is one of the major strategies they have been following for a while now. Pricing for a same distance journey is different for different customers depending on their geographical location. The question, how should a product be priced, is of enormous importance to businesses, and most companies allocate substantial budgets to market research both before launching a new product and once launched through the different stages of the product's life cycle. Economists argue that the level of demand for a product at any price is the sum of what all individual consumers in the market would be willing to purchase. This demand or willingness to pay for any product is affected by three key factors. 1. Individual consumers' preferences for the different characteristics of the product. 2. The price of close substitutes to the product and the price of goods that must be used in conjunction with it. 3. The level of each individual consumer's income. This will apply to any product, be it cans of soft drink, automobiles, or laptops. This unit will examine the common pricing strategies adopted by firms, including price discrimination. Concentration ratios, Herfindahl Index, and contestable markets. The degree by which an industry is dominated by a few large firms is measured by concentration ratios. These give the percentage of total industry sales of 4, 8, or 12 largest firms in the industry. An industry in which the 4-firm concentration ratio is close to 100 is clearly oligopolistic, and industries where this ratio is higher than 50 or 60% are also likely to be oligopolistic. The 4-firm concentration ratio for most manufacturing industries in the United States is between 20 and 80%. Another method of estimating the degree of concentration in an industry is the Herfindahl Index, H. This is given by the sum of the squared values of the market shares of all the firms in the industry. The higher the Herfindahl Index, the greater is the degree of concentration in the industry. For example, if there is only one firm in the industry so that its market share is 100%, H is equals to 1002, that is equals to 10,000. If there are two firms in an industry, one with a 90% share of the market and the other with a 10% share, H is equals to 902 plus 102, which is equals to 8,200. If each firm had a 50% share of the market, H is equals to 502 plus 502, which is equals to 5,000. With 4 equal-sized firms in the industry, H is equals to 2,500. With 100 equal-sized firms in the perfectly competitive industry, H is equals to 100. This points to the advantage of the Herfindahl Index over the concentration ratios discussed above. Specifically, the Herfindahl Index uses information on all the firms in the industry, not just the share of the market by the largest 4, 8, 12 firms in the market. Furthermore, by squaring the market share of each firm, the Herfindahl Index appropriately gives a much larger weight to larger than to smaller firms in the industry. The Herfindahl Index has become of great practical importance since 1982, when the Justice Department in the US announced new guidelines for evaluating proposed mergers based on this index. In fact, according to the theory of contestable markets developed during the 1980s, even if an industry has a single firm, monopoly, or only a few firms, oligopoly, it would still operate as if it were perfectly competitive if entry is absolutely free. That is, if other firms can enter the industry and face exactly the same costs as existing firms, and if exit is entirely costless, that is, if there are no sunk costs so that the firm can exit the industry without facing any loss of capital. An example of this might be an airline that establishes a service between two cities already served by other airlines if the new entrant faces the same costs as existing airlines and could subsequently leave the market by simply reassigning its planes to other routes without incurring any loss of capital. When entry is absolutely free and exit is entirely costless, the market is contestable. Firms will then operate as if they were perfectly competitive and sell at a price which only covers their average costs, so that they earn zero economic profit even if there is only one firm or a few of them in the market. Price discrimination. In economic jargon, price discrimination is usually termed monopoly price discrimination. This label is appropriate because price discrimination cannot happen in a perfectly competitive industry in equilibrium. Monopoly power must be present in a market for price discrimination to exist. This seems a trivial point when you understand the definition of price discrimination, the practice of charging different prices to various consumers for a given product. In a competitive market, consumers would simply buy from the cheapest seller and producers would sell to the highest bidders, and that would be that. With monopoly power, however, the opportunity may exist for the firm to other different terms, to different purchasers, thus dividing the market, a practice known as market segmentation. Price discrimination refers to the situation where a monopoly firm charges different prices for exactly the same product. The monopoly firm can discriminate between different buyers by charging them different prices because it has the power to control price by changing its output. The buyers of its product have no choice but to buy from it as the product has no close substitutes. There are three types of price discrimination: first-degree price discrimination, second-degree price discrimination, and third-degree price discrimination. First-degree price discrimination refers to a situation where the monopolist charges a different price for different units of output according to the willingness to pay of the consumer. For example, a doctor who is the only super specialist in the town may charge different fee for conducting surgery from different patients based on their ability to pay. Second-degree price discrimination refers to a situation where the monopolist charges different prices for different set of units of the same product. For example, the electricity charges per unit of the first 100 kilowatt of power consumption may be different from the rate charged for the additional 100 kilowatts. Another example is railway passenger fares. The per kilometer fare is higher for the first few kilometers, which declines as the distance increases. Thus, the discrimination is based on volume of purchases. When the monopolist firm divides the market into two or more markets and charges different price in each market, it is known as third-degree price discrimination. Airline tickets are a common example of this form of price discrimination. For example, lower rates are applicable to senior citizens than business travelers. Electricity rates applicable to residential users are lower than those applied to commercial establishments, and so on. A. First-degree price discrimination. Monopolists engage in price discrimination when they can increase their profits by doing so, even if the sellers know the maximum amount that different customers are willing to pay. Developing a pricing scheme that makes each customer pay that amount, a practice known as first-degree price discrimination, can be difficult. Under first-degree price discrimination, the full benefit from the trade between buyer and seller accrues to the seller. One strategy to achieve first-degree price discrimination is to sell to the highest bidders through sealed bid auctions. The auction approach is best suited for situations where the volume of sales are low, usually due to scarcity of the product, where there are many potential buyers who are unable to cooperate among themselves, and where buyers all have access to the same information about the product's characteristics. The auction approach would enable the seller to identify those buyers with the highest willingness to pay and would yield the highest possible revenues for the same production costs. This is a common strategy for the sale of very special types of products such as art objects, antique furniture, or the rights to the mining and exploration of plots of land. It is not suitable for most bulk-produced products such as cans of soft drinks or computers. Perfect or first-degree price discrimination can occur when a firm knows the maximum price the individual is willing to pay for each successive unit. The firm could then charge that highest price for each successive unit and capture the entire consumer surplus. Remember that all forms of price discrimination involve some monopoly power, but perfect price discrimination involves a degree of monopoly power rarely found in the real world. B. Second-degree price discrimination. Where the auction approach is not feasible, the company must do its best to approximate the first-degree outcome using its pricing structure. This is based on the notion that an individual consumer derives diminishing satisfaction from each successive unit of any product consumed. This form of price discrimination, which is based on the volume of consumer purchases, is very common and is known as second-degree price discrimination. Other forms of second-degree price discrimination include two-tier tariffs, that is, prices where the consumer must pay a flat fee for access and then a separate fee for usage. This is typical of many clubs, amusement parks, and transport facilities offering monthly or annual passes. The idea in the case of a travel pass, for example, is that the traveler who travels infrequently pays on average a higher price per trip because the fixed access cost is spread over fewer trips. On the other hand, the high-volume user spreads this fixed cost over so many trips that he or she may actually sit next to the infrequent traveler, consume the exact same services, but end up paying a lower average price for any given trip. Second-degree price discrimination is also referred to as multi-part pricing. It is a block or step type of pricing, in which the first set of units is sold at one price, a second set at a lower price, a third set at a still lower price, and so on. Note that this is different from a quantity discount in which the lower discounted price applies to all units purchased. In second-degree price discrimination, the lower price applies only to units purchased in that block. The buyer must have already paid the higher price for the earlier units. Some familiar examples should make this clear. 1. Many retailers adopt second-degree price discrimination for encouraging customers to buy in bulk. Example, when a customer buys one shirt, he or she will be charged full MRP for that, say Rs 2000. But if he or she buys one more shirt, then he or she will be given a discount of Rs 1000 on that. So, the first shirt will be sold at Rs 2000 and second shirt will be sold at Rs 1000. 2. Take example of pricing of an American fast food company which sells burger or fries. When you buy individual burger or fries, you are charged more as compared to when you buy burger, fries and soft drink together as a meal. C. Third-degree price discrimination. Pricing based on what type of consumer is doing the purchasing rather than the volume of purchase is an approach known as third-degree price discrimination. This is very common in the sales of air and rail travel, movie tickets, and other products where consumers can be segmented into different groups who are likely to differ greatly in their willingness to pay based on certain easily identifiable attributes. Thus, third-degree price discrimination or market segmentation requires that the seller be able to 1. Segment or separate the market so that goods sold in one market cannot be resold by the buyers in another, and 2. Identify distinct demand curves with different price elasticities for each market segment. Students are one of the main beneficiaries of third-degree price discrimination schemes, since their demand is more sensitive than the population at large. Other often identified groups include senior citizens and the young, both of whom also tend to be more price sensitive, and business purchasers who are often less price sensitive and may be willing to pay a lot for small quality improvements. Suppose, for example, there are only two types of travelers: students and businessmen. Students pay for their travel out of their own pockets, while businessmen charge their travel to their employers, who in turn deduct these expenses from their taxable income. Since a typical student is likely to be willing to pay less for a travel ticket, all else being equal, than a typical businessman, it makes sense for the company selling travel services to price higher to the businessman and lower to the tourist to get to the largest possible volume of business out of each customer group. Pricing schemes can be quite complex and may combine elements of second and third degree price discrimination. For example, discounted travel passes for students and pensioners. In any case, the main danger to the seller is that customers have an incentive to get together and trade among themselves to benefit from existing price differentials. Thus, a student may try to purchase a ticket he or she does not plan to use for the express purpose of selling it to a business traveler and sharing the difference between the prices. Or a holder of travel pass may offer the pass to a friend to use, enabling the friend to benefit from the high volume of the holder's travel. If this were allowed to happen, the seller would lose the business of the high price paying customer and would be better off offering a single profit maximizing price. The seller engaging in price discrimination must therefore take measures such as passport checks at the departure gate and photos on rail passes to make sure consumers are not able to engage in arbitrage, that is, profit from their access to a lower price by selling to someone to whom such access is precluded. The other danger the price discrimination seller faces is that a rival firm may enter with a single price that undercuts the incumbent's higher price. Then, the rival will draw away the most profitable market segments and the original company will only be left with the low-margin discount buyers. That is why price discrimination is only possible in imperfectly competitive markets where direct competition by rivals is made difficult by entry barriers such as established brand names, laptops, differentiated products, magazines, scale economies in production, air and rail travel, technology patents, pharmaceuticals, for where access to a key input is limited, fine art. Peak load pricing. Peak load pricing is a type of third-degree price discrimination in which the discrimination base is temporal. We single out this particular form of price discrimination in part because of its widespread use. But remember that all forms of third-degree price discrimination, including peak load pricing, involve a seller attempting to capitalize on the fact that buyers' demand elasticities vary. In the case of peak load pricing, customer demand elasticities vary with time. Very few, if any, business economic activities are characterized by an absolutely constant demand during all seasons of the year and at all times of the day. For many, the variations or fluctuations are not large enough to be of concern, but for some activities, fluctuations in demand are significant. These variations are sometimes relatively stable and predictable. Hotel booking prices for vacation spots are a good example of peak load pricing. During peak season, hotels' booking charges are highest and reduced during off-season. Travelers are encouraged to visit hill station during slack period, and those who visit during peak season pay relatively higher prices. Whenever price discrimination is based on time differentials, the object of the selling firm is to charge a higher price for the product during the more inelastic period and a lower price during the more elastic interval. Bundling. You must have come across campaigns of the following kind: buy one, get the second at half price. A camera is sold in a box with a free tripod. A hotel room often comes with complimentary breakfast. These are examples of bundling. Bundling is the practice of selling two or more separate products together for a single price. That is, bundling takes place when goods or services which could be sold separately are sold as a package. A codification of bundling practices and definitions of selling strategies is pure bundling. Products are sold only as bundles. Mixed bundling. Products are sold both separately and as a bundle. And tying. The purchase of the main product, tying product, requires the purchase of another product, tied product, which is generally an additional complementary product. Tying involves purchase of the main product along with purchase of another product, which is generally an additional complementary product. Financial bundling has become widespread. Manufacturing is becoming the loss leader of the profit chain for many companies. In other words, give away the product, make money on the lending that is bundled with it. In India too, a number of automobile companies are providing finance and bundling the automobile with financing. Bundling can be good for consumers. It can reduce search costs. The bundled goods are in the same place, as well as the producer's distribution cost. There are lower transaction costs because a single purchase is cheaper to carry out than multiple ones. And the producer may be a more efficient bundler than the customer. Few of us choose, after all, to buy the individual parts of a computer to assemble them ourselves. In perfectly competitive markets, bundling should happen only if it is more efficient than selling the product separately. Where there is less than perfect competition, that is, most markets' economic models suggest that bundling sometimes benefits consumers and sometimes producers. When firms have a measure of market power, they can engage in price discrimination, charging different prices to different customers. Bundling can play a part in price discrimination, as different bundles of goods and prices may appeal to different customers. In a celebrated case that caught much media attention, Microsoft was accused of anti-competitive conduct in bundling Internet Explorer and Windows as a pure bundle. Microsoft claimed they are not a bundle at all, rather a single product incapable of being broken into parts. It is of course difficult to settle such arguments, but the interesting aspect is that the company does not consider its products as being capable of broken into parts. Two-part tariffs. One of their techniques require buyers to pay a fee for the right to purchase their product and then to pay a regular price per unit of the product. For example, mobile telecom operators A, B, etc. used to charge a monthly fixed charge and then additional charges based on usage for their post-paid plans. A two-part tariff is often a good way to increase profit by extracting some but not all of the consumer surplus from a monopolist's client. A two-part tariff is often a good way to increase profit by extracting some but not all of the consumer surplus from a monopolist's client. Monopolists usually experiment with various two-part tariff pricing schemes before hitting on the one that gives them maximum profit. When theme parks amusement rides opened, it was the first amusement park of its kind in Mumbai and so had no precedent to go by. As the objective was to sell the concept to as many people as possible, it avoided charging a composite fee, for a stiff entrance fee would keep families away. Instead, it selected what seemed the most sensible approach: pay as you go. It charged an entrance fee of 5 rupees for children and 10 rupees for adults, and the individual rides were priced between 2 and 15 rupees. Later, however, theme parks amusement rides jettisoned the split pricing strategy and switched over to composite pricing. Under the new tariff structure, children were charged a fee of 80 rupees while adults had to pay 100 rupees. There were no charges levied on the rides. What prompted the switch? According to their vice president, they found difficult to implement the pay-as-you-go strategy because of logistical problems. Pricing of joint products. Products can be related in production as well as demand. One type of production interdependency exists when goods are jointly produced in fixed proportions. The process of producing leather shoes and handbags in a leather factory is a good example of fixed proportions in production. Each unit provides a certain amount of leather shoes and handbags. There is little that the leather factory can do to alter the proportions of the two products. When goods are produced in fixed proportions, they should be thought of as a product package, because there is no way to produce one part of this package without also producing the other part. There is no conceptual basis for allocating total production costs between the two goods. These costs have meaning only in terms of the product package. Transfer pricing. In today's world, a lot of companies have divided their operations into several divisions. Transfer pricing is setting the price for goods that are sold between these related legal entities. It means the price of goods which is paid by one unit of an organization to another unit. Example, branch A of a company sells goods to branch B. The price paid by B is the transfer price. Transactions covered under transfer pricing are sale of finished goods, purchase of raw material, IT-enabled services, purchase of fixed assets, sale or purchase of machinery, sale or purchase of intangibles, reimbursement of expenses, paid received, support services, software development services, technical service fee, management fee, royalty fee, corporate guarantee fee, loan received or paid, etc. Purpose of transferring pricing. Profits of different unit can be ascertained separately, and this helps in separate performance evaluation of each unit of an organization. Transfer pricing also impact resource allocation among different units of an organization. Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) is responsible for governing transfer pricing for multinational companies. Through transfer pricing, multinationals try to take tax advantage, and that is the reason OECD has set some guidelines. It has specified a particular principle named Arm's Length Principle (ALP) for these type of dealings between related parties. ALP states that prices should be set by assuming each party as independent, not dependent or related parties. In simple words, it means transactions should be executed at fair market price. In addition to this principle, guidelines also specify different methods of transfer pricing. These methods are divided into two main heads: traditional transaction methods and transactional profit methods. Traditional transaction methods. Comparable uncontrolled price (CUP) method. Under these methods, comparison is done between the terms and conditions of uncontrolled transactions and controlled transactions. This requires high standard comparable data to ensure that transaction has been done on the basis of ALP. Resale price method. In this method, selling price of a product is used, which is known as resale price. Margin amount and different costs, determined by comparing to unrelated transactions, are deducted to determine resale price. Cost plus method. Under this, a markup amount is added in the total costs incurred by the supplier unit of the organization. Transactional profit methods. The comparable profits method. Under this method, basis of the transfer price is net profit of controlled transaction. The profit split method. This pricing method is used where companies are engaged in interconnected transactions and profits are separated by examining how unrelated parties would split profits in similar transactions. Other pricing practices. Prestige pricing. It is a type of pricing strategy where a product is placed at a higher price because consumers associate higher price with higher quality, and a prestige is attached to the ownership of the product. This is also known as image pricing. Nike is one of the best examples of prestige pricing. Price skimming. It is a strategy where a company charges high prices for consumers at first and earn substantial profits. Later, reduces the prices gradually to attract other customers who are price sensitive. Apple is the best example of this type of pricing strategy. Penetration pricing. Companies charge relatively lower prices for their product to attract customers and increase market share. This pricing strategy is to lure customers away from competitors' products. Psychological pricing. Psychological pricing involves pricing that has impact on the psychology of the consumers. Example, companies set prices such as 499 rupees, etc., which consumers perceive as lower prices than they actually are. Summary. For a firm to be able and willing to engage in price discrimination, the buyers of the firm's product must fall into classes with considerable differences among classes in the price elasticity of demand for the product, and it must be possible to identify and segregate these classes at moderate cost. Also, buyers must be unable to transfer the product easily from one class to another, since otherwise persons could make money by buying the product from the low price classes and selling it to the high price classes, thus making it difficult to maintain the price differentials among classes. The differences among classes of buyers in the price elasticity of demand may be due to differences among classes in income level, tastes, or the availability of substitutes.
We were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code MMPC 010, titled Managerial Economics. Course coordinator Dr. Leena Singh. Voiceover by Renuka. Edited by Savita. Program assisted by Tarannum Jahan. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.